The Joe Biden campaign is opposing calls to defund the police. Now, this has become somewhat of a slogan with these recent protests, but it's not just a slogan. It is an actual approach that will bring about meaningful change within police reform. So you can go to the furthest extent of this, which would be to abolish the police, which many people are also saying, but defund the police is actually the compromise. So defunding simply presents the facts that over the years, police budgets have inflated, been given more and more money every year, while there's been cuts to healthcare, cuts to infrastructure, cuts to social programs. So, which I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. But when you present this data to people, it becomes obvious that actually, yeah, defund the police isn't a crazy slogan. It is actually something that needs to be done. Now, before I get into some of the arguments against it, let me first show you more of Biden's statement here. Biden backs advocates' calls to increase spending on social programs separate from local police budgets, but he also wants more funding for police reforms such as body cameras and training on community policing approaches, campaign spokesman Andrew Bates said in a statement. Now, this is the approach that the Democrats have taken for years. And this is much of what the Minneapolis Police Department did before now recently finally deciding to disband the police department. They did these reforms. They did these Obama-era reforms, and they didn't work. They are now learning that the only way to truly combat what the police have become, this toxic culture that has destroyed the lives of thousands and thousands of people, is to actually defund the police. Move what they usually do, move their responsibilities to other forms of community-led policing, I guess is the wrong word, but community-led resources in order to actually deal with various things, whether it's domestic disputes, whether it's homelessness, things that the police have been called upon for years to deal with and have never dealt with properly. So it is not a crazy idea to defund the police. Now, when it comes to the arguments against it, in terms of the politics of it, let me present you here Cenk Uygur. He has a few tweets about this. Progressive activists have a way of framing things in a way that causes maximum pushback from most Americans. Both abolish ICE and defund the police sound like you're getting rid of all law enforcement. You're not doing that, so I don't know why you want to give off that impression. Well, when it comes to abolish ICE, yeah, you're getting rid of ICE. I mean, sure, you could say, well, yes, I mean, ICE is a fairly new agency, and, border security existed before ICE. But when it comes to defunding the police, it's not abolish the police, even though that does exist. Defunding the police is simply looking at the fact that you don't need the police for most things. For most of what the police are used for right now, you don't need them. And in fact, their presence has only made things worse. Now, his argument is more of a, rhetorical argument. He goes on to say, no, say it in a way that appeals to a majority of voters, so you win and can actually get the change you're looking for. Now, before I move on, the majority of voters. How about the majority of people that don't normally vote? There are 40% of people that don't normally vote. Now, a lot of that is, you could chalk up to people being busy. They got stuff to do. But if they felt like they had political leaders that were actually fighting for them, then maybe they'd be more engaged. But always taking this measured approach to politics, I don't think is a winning message. We've seen from Democratic leaders, it's not a winning message. So why would you continue taking this very measured, laid-back approach when the people are calling for exactly what people want to see, what voters want to see, and you will engage more voters that way? Now, again, of course, yes, you have to actually explain it. Again, which I'm going to get to in a minute, but it's not, when you begin to see the police budgets compared to everything else, It's not all that tough to explain. But just to finish this tweet here, he says, but if you just want to feel good about a chant, then sure, call it anything you like. Whereas I'm desperate to change the culture of policing in this country. You're not going to change the culture. The only way to change the culture of policing is to defund the police. Now, he may actually agree with defunding the police, but disagree with the slogan of it. But one last tweet here. If you read Joe Biden's statement about defund the police, he doesn't even want to restructure the police or fundamentally change it. But now he gets to hide behind it. I'm being reasonable because I'm not for getting rid of police altogether. Our framing lets him off the hook. I don't know who's letting Joe Biden off the hook here. In fact, him coming out and saying he's against defunding the police, I think only goes to further anger people and really make them consider, are they even going to bother voting if they see two politicians, two leaders, not fighting for their issues? So I don't know how that's Biden off the hook. I mean, even apart from his position on defund the police, the crime bill. Like, nobody's letting Joe Biden off the hook here. So I don't really get Cenk's approach, especially when he's somebody who has in the past been more, loud and really, has brought anger into politics. So the idea that he doesn't see that as a turnoff, but sees this as a turnoff when it's a real solution, I don't quite get that approach, especially when, again, look here. Rashida Tlaib tweeted this out. When we say defund police, what we mean is people are dying and we need to invest in people's livelihoods instead. Example, Detroit spent $294 million on police last year and $9 million on health. This is systemic oppression in numbers. All you got to do is look at this. The red bar are the police. Then you got fire, general services, finance, housing in pink, 36th district, IT, recreation, law, and then it goes down, health, the very bottom, at 9. All you got to do as Joe Biden or the Democratic Party is present something like this. Showcase how much money is put into policing compared to everything else. And all of a sudden, hashtag defund the police doesn't sound so crazy. So I think it's something the Democratic Party should absolutely pursue. And it's not going to hurt them. I mean, how can everything that we are seeing go on with the police initiating the violence in the streets, with them initiating and escalating it? I mean, I just saw, I think it was Seattle. Seattle apparently banned tear gas for 30 days. Yet, last night in the streets, full of tear gas. So when you have a force like this that is so above control, the only way to actually change anything is to take their power away. And the only way to take their power away, if they're not going to listen to you, is to defund them. Because they have no control over that budget. That is how you enact real power over the police force. And how you actually change things. Now you could say, well, Joe Biden, national figure, doesn't really have to even answer or respond or take a position on defunding the police because it's more of a local issue. Fine. If you want to take that measured approach, I mean, it would fit Joe Biden. That's kind of what he does. That is at least a more preferable approach to him coming out and being against it. If he just stood back and said, hey, look, it's not my jurisdiction. It's a local thing. So I'm not going to comment on that. Bring up the fact that Minneapolis is doing it. And let's see how that works. Bring up the fact that these police budgets are out of control compared to everything else. Bring up these facts. But if you want to sit back and not take a position, okay, fine. But don't come out and be against it.